So like run for the hills now. We're going to talk about both. So this is our family plugged in. So I want to start with setting the tone for this talk and saying this is something where I feel like we're all in this together. It's not a lecture to you, it's something I feel like all families are trying to figure out right now is technology. And it's happening so fast that sometimes we don't have time to stop and realize, is this what we want, or how to integrate it? And by the time we figured out one thing, the next thing's already here, and well, what do we do with this, and how do we set limits? Or it's just happening so fast that we haven't even decided if this is really what we want, or how to deal with this as a culture. And also set the tone for we're all in this together, because I feel like as a parent I'm just inundated with information on the do's and don'ts and what I'm doing wrong and what I've done horribly wrong. My kids are never going to overcome it. And I don't want this to be like that. I want to really let us think together of what works best for your family. Let you think about what works best for your family. And to say that I think being a better parent isn't about being a perfect parent. It's about having self-compassion and about being open-minded to new ideas and about setting and knowing your limits. And so today is thinking about our limits on technology and setting those limits on technology and thinking about what our own use and the use of our family and kind of starting these conversations about what we're seeing in our families and with our children. So, to start with a little story about me. So my iPhone. So I got a smartphone super early. I think it was like 2002. They came out and thought, what a great way to stay organized. And I was okay with it until 2014 when I got an iPhone. So for those people who love Samsung, that is awesome. But I will tell you, those people at Apple know what they're doing. Because I was like, oh my gosh, I totally get why people are obsessed with their phones. This is awesome. Right? Love it. So for me, that was like a shift in having the iPhone and seeing, being really connected to a device. So this one thing that kind of got me thinking about my own use. And a lot of people are using these kind of terms of addiction and obsession when we talk about technology. And addiction or obsession. Dr. Larry Rawson talks about this. And when we talk about addiction, we're talking about neurotransmitters in our brains that are looking for chemicals to produce a pleasurable experience, right? We're looking for pleasure when we're talking about addiction. And we're talking about obsession. It's also dealing with neurotransmitters, but those chemicals produce anxiety and stress. And so when we're addicted, we're looking for the pleasure it brings, and when we're obsessed, we're looking to reduce anxiety. So he said, personally, I think that our constant obsession with technology, obsession being an anxiety-based disorder, is mostly about reducing anxiety and very little about gaining pleasure. So then we think, when we go to check our phones, are we like, this is going to be so awesome to get on my phone and play? Or are we like, what have I missed? What emails have I missed? Oh, who liked my status? And even that becomes this kind of tense thing of looking and not looking, and you're very aware you haven't looked at it. Where is my phone? And you realize it's not because your phone's so fun, it's because there's some anxiety of being separated from that technology, feeling cut off from it. And while I'm talking about adults, I am going to skip around a little bit while we're on this and talk about kids and boredom. So, right, boredom. So for boredom is kind of becoming a new area, a hot area of research right now, because it's becoming this little unknown experience for children. And one reason is because a lot of children are given technology when they're bored. When they're in the grocery store, when they're in the car, when they're waiting. Countless examples of when technology is a simple cure for boredom. And so for kids, boredom is becoming an emotion that's also attached, remember we're talking about anxiety and obsession, attached to feeling anxious because it's kind of this unknown and they're not used to being bored. So we have to think every time a child is handed technology, when they're bored, they're being conditioned to seek stimulation instead of learning self-calming. And I definitely see in this generation of children just a lack of self-calming skills. So that's a problem. And boredom's okay, and it's kind of disappearing. Kids don't know what to do with boredom. And everything I'm saying, not all children, but these are big problems that are coming up in the research, boredom. And that's a hot thing that's coming up right now, is let them be bored. Don't always go to technology. Right? A simple solution of the iPad. Okay, so maybe you have like great control at home. We always like, this is the choir who shows up. So maybe you have great control at home, you feel like you have great guidelines, and maybe, just maybe, even you yourself have like great control over your own iPhone, and you're like, oh, I'm awesome with this. But in general, that's not what children of this generation are saying. They're saying there's a new phenomenon, and it's called texting while parenting. So this is disconnected, kind of detached parenting, where everybody's on a device. Everybody on the home is on a device, maybe more than we realize. So I think there's inappropriate use in people of all ages. And when we think about the impact of texting while parenting, a lot of times people go to babies. And while those 2 first years of development, of course, are crucial, and we think of a baby, go back to the baby looking to the parent, the primary caretaker, for these lessons on how to behave or for emotions. And when they look up and see a parent on an iPhone, they see what? What do we look like on our iPhone? Look at that disinterest. Complete void. So they're saying that's a real problem. But wouldn't we also say it's a problem for our developing children who look to a parent for those lessons that they constantly need on their emotional development, and they see just the void, the disconnect. So it's not that different. So what are they missing? This is going to be much problem. What are they missing when they look to a parent who's disconnected? What are they missing? That's for y'all. Connection, contact. What aren't they getting that they might be otherwise getting if their attention wasn't connected? Attention,
Emotional cues.
emotional cues. So this is an interesting study thinking about reading emotions. This is kind of jumping back to kids. Thinking about these like emotional cues. So a UCLA study that was published in Humans and Computers in Human Behavior, did a neat study, and it was in the article Tim set out. And it was kids who went 5 days without technology, and these were 6th graders, were significantly better at reading human emotion than children who had regular access to media. And I think that's so interesting. Just 5 days, they're significantly better at reading human emotion. So this is one of these new areas we're thinking about. It's not just the amount of time they're spending on it, it's what are they missing. And I think when we started with TV, we had a pretty good understanding of that. Or they finally were honest enough to say, okay, it's not really about the TV they're watching, it's what they're missing. And this is what they're missing. Something this study hasn't gone on to say that would be interesting, I think, is what's the lasting impact? You know, if you went back 2 weeks later, a month later, would those 5 days still make a difference, or would they go right back to where they were prior to those 5 days? But these studies are starting to come out with more frequency about what are children missing. So feeling. So they want to connect. They're looking at us to connect, and then when we're on the iPhone, we're completely disconnected. So they're not getting that relationship. They're not getting the learning that we've all talked about. So we said that, I'm going to go back and talk about how how children might be feeling. And y'all said some things. What do y'all think the word is they're using to describe parents right now?
Distracted.
Distracted. What else?
Busy.
Busy. Catherine Steiner-Adair, I'm going to talk about her a little later, did a big study interviewing children all over the country, and one word kept popping up. Keep guessing. Parents are... It starts with an H. It's pretty jarring. Give up. Yeah. Hypocrites. There are hypocrites. And this is from children. And this was like the word she kept saying, that parents are hypocritical because they're laying down all these guidelines of what you can't do, and then they look, and then we're on the iPhone. So hypocrites kept coming up. Does anyone else, so we said they're sad, anything else we think children are probably feeling about parents on their
I
phones?
feel like we're unavailable.
Unavailable?
Maybe we are unavailable in that moment, but in the child's vision, you're just unavailable. Like an adult might think, I'm unavailable right now, but I'm not an unavailable parent, but I don't think kids see it that way. I think they take that and view it more as you're just unavailable.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah. I'll read a few quotes from children about what they said about parents being on the phone. So this is from a 7-year-old. He said, my mom is almost always on the iPad at dinner. She's always just checking. I keep on asking her, let's play, and she's always texting on her phone. That's a 7-year-old. When my mother and father are really mad at each other on the phone, I'm in the car, and it's on Bluetooth, and I hear things that make me scared that something bad is going to happen, and I worry they're going to get a divorce. That's a 10-year-old. A lot of the time, at home when my parents are on the computer, I feel like I'm not there, because they pretend I'm not there. Like, they're not even talking to me, they're just ignoring me, and I feel like, ugh, sad. That's a 7-year-old. I'm going to read one more, and this is from a 9-year-old. She said, when my dad is on the phone, I have this conversation in my head. Hello, remember me? Remember who I am? I'm your daughter. You had me because you wanted me. Only it doesn't feel like that right now. Right now, it feels like all you care about is your phone. And then she adds, but I don't say that because they'll get mad at me. It doesn't help. It feels worse. So it's just this conversation I have with myself. So kids are feeling this. They're seeing this. They're looking to us to connect. And when we're on our phones, it's just not possible. So I am going to move on. I am going to talk about children's use, but I do feel like this is vital and something that's coming up, and kids are talking about it. And so we have to model good behavior. And that's so important because nothing determines media use in our children like the media use of his or her parents. Because we determine the environment, and we are the models that are showing them what's appropriate use, how to use these devices. Are y'all okay? Yeah. So I was reading from The Big Disconnect by Catherine Steiner-Adair. She's great. She's got some really wonderful, a good blog, and this is a great book, and some simple standards about times to connect. I don't know, the first email that sent out, it was 8 times to connect. So I'm not going to go through those, but we're going to talk about what we think are important times to connect a little later. This is an interesting quote. It doesn't just blow me away, but it's important. So children don't need us constantly, but they do need to experience our being there for them, genuinely connected with them at times when our presence matters to them. I went back because I thought, did I type that wrong? That's a lot of thumbs. But then that makes sense, because it's about times when our presence matters to them. When they're trying to tell us something important, or at these important, crucial times of reconnection we have during the day, when our presence matters to them. So during these times when our presence matters to them, if we are on the phone, I think the message we send is that this is more important. Everybody else is more important. What I'm doing right now is more important than what you're trying to say. And I think it's kind of paired with our preoccupation / responsiveness to these calls, texts, and emails that leave children feeling disconnected. And like these other things matter more. So these times, these important times to connect, we're going to kind of come back to these later and think, when are these times? When are these times we're going to hold special in our family? But anyway, it's a good book. It's a good place to start. The Big Disconnect is where a lot of these ideas kind of came from.
Chelsea, I just had like a total aha moment when we were talking about this. I'm thinking, I'm that parent that does give my children special time, like alone with them and whatnot. And I'm realizing, oh my gosh, actually, even though I'm in that special time and moment with them, just having my phone, I think, in my pocket, even if I don't check it the entire 20 or 30 minutes, it's almost like my child may feel anxiety about, well, Mom might get that phone at any time. She's not like 100% with me during our special time.
Right.
And so I'm thinking it's almost like the other friend or the other child or the, you know what I'm saying? Like the, like it's robbing that, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm having special time with one of my sons this afternoon. He's so looking forward to it. I'm thinking, can I just let my husband know I'm not going to have my phone on me at all, and I wonder how that'll affect, my child's feeling of aloneness with me, to know the phone is not even there. Like, it's not like, I mean,
I think that's a good point to bring up, and that's another little catchphrase that's coming into these discussions is kids are viewing the phone as like the new sibling rivalry.
Yeah,
it's the big competition between can I get the attention over the phone.
Yeah.
And I think just when it's out, like it has power. Like it's
that's right. That's what I did. I didn't ever think about that. I was like, oh my gosh, like, it probably is still in their view, like, well, at any moment, she may go pick that phone up and go off to her call, or, it's not really undivided attention. It's divided attention.
And I'm really getting, at the very end, I'm going to talk a little bit about thinking about balance. But I'm glad she brought that up, because I want to go back to one thing about this quote where we don't feel overwhelmed. Because I started saying, let's don't get overwhelmed. Let's don't be so hard on ourselves. Let's give ourselves a break as parents. Children don't need us constantly. And that's a big part. And I kind of want to go back and end with that. So when you hear these things, you're like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Like, never have technology ever. No. But I like to think of everything like 10 minutes. Like as a counselor, I try to think of like really realistic goals. And 10 minutes of undivided time. That's enough. That's really important. And you think, oh, I can do that. That sounds easy. And that's the way people should feel when they hear about a set amount of time to do something. 10 minutes. Without the phone near you at all. Okay. All right, kids. We're switching over, so y'all can breathe now. Kids plugged in. So statistics kind of go up and down on the hours kids spend and the amount of time. Recently, Common Sense Media did a 2013 study that suggested between 8 to 18-year-olds spend about 45 hours a week on media, and that included video games, music, texting, iPhones, TV, everything. So that's a lot. But instead of focusing on the time, we've kind of been thinking more, what are they missing? What are they not getting? And so when we're thinking about kids and what they're not getting and things that are important, what do you think they're not getting? What are they not getting if they're spending all that time on the
outside creative play?
Outside creative play. What else?
I think human conversation and contact.
Yes. Authentic social interaction.
Yeah. So to me, that's probably most important, is that human interaction, that contact, and there's so many other things, and there's so many components, but that connection, whether it's with us, whether it's with a friend, whether it's somebody, a next door neighbor, or just when they're having a play date, that human interaction. So I'm going to do a little psychology lesson. Erik Erikson is a psychologist who did a theory of personality. So, you know Freud, and where Freud had done psychosexual stages of personality development, The focus now is on Erik Erikson, who did psychosocial stages of development that suggest our personality is formed over our lifespan based on our interactions with others. So we have this ego identity, or sense of self, that is constantly changing and forming due to new interactions and experiences we have on a daily basis when we interact with others. Okay, so will we say technology interferes with that? And so then I think it's not a far stretch to say that technology could therefore be impeding our development. Okay, so I'm gonna look at his psychosocial stages chart. I'm not gonna go too extreme with this. But let's just look at children here, age group. So if we look at 3 through 5th years, the stages, initiative versus guilt. And the favorable outcome would be you're a self-starter to initiate one's own activities. And the unfavorable outcome would be a sense of guilt and inadequacy to be on one's own. So how do you think technology could play a part in that development? Think about that stage, and this is a really condensed version of the stage, but what do you think? Do you see a way where technology could interfere?
It's always filling the void where they
Yes.
feel.
It's that boredom. They don't have to figure out what to do. I'll just get this. I don't have to think, what can I do instead?
Yeah. And then I think we can see later on how that would create this kind of sense of inadequacy or not knowing what to do or how to start something, how to create something. We go to the next stage, and these are condensed also, but industry versus inferiority, ability to learn how things work, to understand and organize. A sense of inferiority and understanding and organizing is an unfavorable outcome. So similar, any comments on that, thinking about technology's impact? In some ways we're learning how things work. You know, there's been some really positive information on Minecraft. Yes, Minecraft, and it's doing great things. But then we go to everything where it's this obsession with Minecraft, and it interferes with the day.
It's very passive learning. They're not putting their hands on anything and taking it apart.
It is passive learning, right? And there are positives, but a lot of it is just this kind of passive learning that's filling the void. Okay. I'm sure I'm missing anything.
Chelsea, this is going to sound a little bit like patting ourselves on the back, but it's just, I'm just thinking back to over the years as we have thought about technology and at what ages and stages we want to have it available to our students here at school. From the very beginning of, do we want our 3-year-olds to have computers in the classroom and all of that? Do we want our 4-year-olds? Do we want tech time for them? The response from our teachers has always been, at what expense?
Yeah.
What do they most need to be spending their time on during the time they're in school? Not that having technology available to them is anything bad, but what time would we sacrifice for these children, and what do they most need?
Yeah.
And the whole socialization and exploration is the thing they need. And so, our teachers have been the ones who have always said, no, we choose to spend our time with our children. This is what we would rather provide for our children at this time. And I'm seeing the wisdom of that now. I mean, and that's from way back when, having teachers in the classroom. And I know, I was just reading in the magazine recently, a pre-K3 program in town that's what they stress, that the technology for their 3-year-olds. So, thinking, at what expense? And so what skills that are you not getting?
Yeah, that's a good question. Anybody have anything else on this one? Okay, while we're talking about development, it's hard for me not to do something on this. And while I said I don't want to inundate us with these do's and don'ts, And I think yesterday I saw an article that said, another reason to worry about your toddler's nap time. And I was like, I do not think another reason. Sleep is like, it's so important, and it's one of our basic needs, and I'm going to talk about it because I do see it. I see it here, and I see how it's a problem, and that's another just bigger research that keeps coming out, that our kids are not getting enough sleep. And really interesting research coming out about how that ties to technology. So while we're talking about development, I can't leave sleep out of this. And there were so many interesting little insights, and these are really simple. But the first one was just that nearly every problem or concern of parents and pediatricians can be brought on or exacerbated by inadequate sleep. I mean, you think about a problem, and it can be tied to sleep. So I see it. I mean, I see it here. The sleep is a problem, and also being tied to technology and kids having fears about what they've seen. Kids staying on that iPad before they go to bed and staying on too late and being really kind of obsessed with it and distracted by it the next day, even whatever they went to bed watching, they wake up and they're here and they're kind of stuck in it. Seeing adult content. If they have them in their room, getting on it when they think mom and dad don't realize it, or sending them to talk to their friends on if they have a phone in their room, or they have an iPad. You know, I've heard crazy things. Waking up in the middle of the night to try to watch Netflix. So this is a problem. All the technology in the bedroom, but we're going to get to that later too. So the research basically is saying that it's the interactivity of these forms of media that increase alertness, and they make it really hard to disengage in a timely and self-directed manner. So you're just kind of hooked to it. And I don't know, I have definitely seen a difference between my child watching a TV program and an iPad. And I wonder if y'all have. I mean, taking away an iPad versus let's turn off the TV is scary, the difference. iPad is completely different. And I think, you know, you can watch TV, you can still kind of play, maybe go do something else, you're talking, but that iPad is this. And there's nothing else that exists. So a lot of this when I'm thinking about that iPad a lot, because I think that comes up a little more, maybe the TV when I'm thinking about issues, is that iPad being so connected to it. It's different. Y'all seen this? It's a different beast than the TV. So, let's continue with the research, and this is from the Kaiser Foundation, was viewing violent, exciting, or suspenseful media increases stress and arousal hormones, and the secretion of these hormones are associated with increased delay of sleep and poor sleep quality. So it's what we see, maybe up watching iPad for whatever reason and it takes longer to go to bed, kind of roused up, and that's because of these chemicals being pumped out. But also, in the research now, we're seeing that is poor sleep quality. It goes on further in the night. The children are not sleeping as well. They're getting close, I'm getting close to saying on the amount of time that they're missing from the association between viewing the technology, the iPad, exciting, suspenseful media, and then the quality sleep they get that night. Anna Wadlington brought this up in our first talk, but also the iPad, it's the light from the iPad decreases the melatonin being pumped out, which is necessary for the onset of sleep. So it's that bright light also has an effect, just getting to sleep at the right time. So sleep's important. We need to protect our children's sleep. We need to make that an important time, a special time, and we really have to do that as parents to protect their sleep. And so I think this is a good time to transition to thinking about some of these guidelines as we think about the impact of sleep right before bedtime. So setting limits has a lot to do with just what will you hold sacred in your family. What's important to you? Everybody's schedules are different. Everybody's family's life is different. And so I don't think there's just a one rule fits all. I also say at this point, I have am I an hour over? Because when she started talking, I was like, she's going to tell me this was cheating.
Not 25.
Okay, y'all are good? Yeah. All right, so guidelines as a family, what works for you and your family? And I do want to take a second to talk about, or ask you, if there's anything you feel like we're doing this and it works really well. Because I've heard so many different things that work for different families, from no TV during the week, unlimited on the weekend, to, one show a day, or 30 minutes a day. American Pediatric Association says up to 2 hours a day. That sounds like a lot to me, but if you factor in people who use it during driving times or in the morning, it can add up pretty quickly. Does anybody do anything with technology where you're like, I'm doing this and it's working for us, or go ahead?
I don't know that it's working.
Okay, but I'll tell you what we're doing.
Okay, so our 13-year-old does not have a phone. He tells me daily that he is the only 13-year-old at St. Andrews, and I really think he might be. But that's fine. He has an iPad.
What grade is 13?
Yeah,
Okay.
he really might be.
Yeah, that's fine.
I do not, but we
Do
don't.
you know when you're gonna do the phone?
Never.
When we see more maturity and responsibility from him. And I would love for that to be soon. Like, I would love for that to be, a realistic goal would be maybe this summer. He's gonna get a laptop this summer, new technology guidelines for, he's gonna get a laptop for St. Andrews this summer, so that's gonna open up a whole new door. But what we do, and I don't know that this works or not, so, and it's gonna make me sound like a really strict parent, but we are, so that's fine, is, and there's exceptions to this. Like yesterday, I had to do something, and my kids, I had to take them, and they had to have something to keep them busy. But Monday through Friday, each kid gets, if they can make it through the day, being polite, no issues, they get 30 minutes. Like I have these little note cards. They get 30 minutes. And then on the weekend, basically starting, I guess that would be Friday night, they have the potential, if they have a great week, to have 2.5 hours for the weekend on their device.
Yeah.
Whether that be the iTouch, whether that be the DS, whether that be the iPad, so not everybody gets 2.5 hours at the end of every week, that's fine, but that's just what you earn. Like, so that's just what we, and we haven't been doing that for very long, but we started doing that like in November. And they kind of know.
Yeah.
Like, okay, well, I only earned my half this week, so, and I have like a timer.
Yeah, that's cool.
Is there a device on the iPad or iTunes that you can say this will shut off in an
I
hour?
think there's an app.
Can you do that?
Yeah.
There are apps you can get that will, and they'll turn it off during certain hours automatically, so if you just wanna say after 10 o'clock, they can't use it at all, so they're not sneaking out at night, you can actually. It's not, I can look for some names and get them to use it, so that.
User, you can shut it off.
I was all about all this stuff until last week. I read this really great article that Dr. Jay Nelson wrote about self-regulation and how do we teach our children self-regulation.
Yeah.
And we're all parenting them to that degree. And it opened my mind. I'm like, I didn't need to read this, because now I'm in that mindset of how am I going to help my children learn to self-regulate, because they won't be in my home under my rule forever. And when they go out, how can they know what's good for
Well,
them?
that's kind of what I'm thinking about while you've been talking, is teaching, like, role modeling for them, how we can use technology.
Exactly.
But we don't have to be, like, it isn't, you can't get around it. I mean, you have to have it for school, you have to have it for work, I mean, you need to know how to use it, you need to know how to use it appropriately.
Yes.
So how do we teach them that, not just limiting it because we said so, and it's not good for you, but getting them to realize, and depending on their age, obviously, what that means.
I think that's complicated, especially because one of these posts was a little more complicated. Talked about is that these forms of technology make it nearly impossible for kids to do that. It's the interactivity that makes it where they really can't self-regulate on those. I mean, they are hooked in. Time is flying. It might have felt like 10 minutes and it was 4 hours. So this is one of those things where we do have to come and help teach them. And I know here, I try to make connections with the kids about if they're feeling tired and connect that to, the iPad. Or kids who are like, oh, I want to do really well, and talk about your brain and how your brain what your brain needs, and kind of bring it on a level to them where they can think about the benefits of technology, but also some things that are not so great when we use too much technology, and they get that. And I've had a fourth grader say, you know what, I decided I'm just not going to watch it during the week. I'm not going to use anything during the week, and I decided that. And by that age, they can make some of those decisions. But I do think it has a lot to do with what we're doing. And I do think they need those guidelines, but you can start saying things like that. I mean, you can talk to them about this, about the sleep, and did you know that it keeps you up at night, or it's not good for your brain? Let's give our brains a break and play outside. I mean, they get that.
Well,
some of these connections on their level.
They need to know what the options are. I mean, I didn't have a game console when I was a kid. They weren't invented yet, but we're probably the last generation that knows that there's something else out there.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you look at them looking at their peers, they think this is normal, we think this is normal.
Yeah.
So, just knowing what options are out there, it's our job to show them this is the outdoors, and this is the campfire, and this is...
Yeah. Yeah.
Agreed. But I'm also struck, like just this morning, my daughter, my 12-year-old, couldn't get out of bed because she was reading a book, a paper book, like all night long. She stayed up, I stayed up too late reading, Mom. And I'm like, well, okay. But, I mean, like,
That's a good problem to have.
I've done that too.
Well, actually, everything to excess.
Yeah,
Everything
everything
is
is
anything
well,
to excess.
right. And when I told her, I was like, I've done that too. And it really sucks this morning.
It does.
And
It's
she's like,
like,
yeah.
yeah.
I'm like, so maybe we shouldn't do that anymore. you
Yeah.
know? But
Yeah.
I'm like, well, okay.
Yeah.
You know,
Sometimes
I
it's
took her out,
delicious.
but she was reading a book.
That's what I'm saying.
I've got to leave, but I wanted to comment on the study about children and technology and whatever. And I read the same things about adults 2 years ago. I have a husband that, you know, that has sleep disorder, but it applies to you too. And I don't know how many of you get a good night's sleep, but that has a whole lot to do with how you handle your job the next day. But not having even the lights on technology in your
In the
room
bedroom.
are negative.
Yeah.
Like if you have a green, you know, around you, these lights are on during the night, it affects you. And reading your iPad, you know, your Facebook,
Yeah.
catching up right before you go to bed and things like that, it has a negative effect on parents.
Right.
So, parents, be kind to yourselves. Let yourselves get a good night's sleep. Thank you, Chelsea. I loved it.
One thing that's worked in our house is we don't have a set time, we kind of use some concepts. But the thing that has helped the best, that let my child kind of say was, if you're watching TV, you're watching TV. You're not coloring while you're watching TV, you're not making a bracelet while you're watching TV, you're doing one thing at a time, you're not eating whatever. I mean, okay, movie night, we have popcorn. You know, Friday night we watch a movie, she knows that. We don't watch a lot of it, but it's like that or the computer or whatever, so we've really tried to make it very much, you do one thing. And that's made her go, well, I don't really want to watch TV because I want to do something else.
Yeah.
Because we found it was kind of on in the background,
That's interesting.
and she wasn't really watching it. So we're kind of like, you pick one thing.
Yeah.
And that's really made her more aware of going, I want to watch this show, so I'll watch this, and when it's over, I want to go do something else. So just something as simple as that has helped a little bit with limiting and letting her choose those limits rather than me saying, you only get this amount, and trying to figure out, you know, a goal there.
You know, TV on in the background, you said that, that's great. And a lot of things that I was reading through this that were really interesting was that the effects of passive watching of TV on in the background were way more harmful than active watching. Like if you just have the TV on, that was like the worst thing to do. So that was a great comment, and that was really interesting to me, especially when it's adult content on in the background. That's like the worst. Okay, so some guidelines. I know I gotta move a little faster now. TV and tech in the bedrooms is a really just, it's not a great idea. Especially if it's unmonitored. If you have limits and you can turn it off and they can't turn it on and all that, but it does affect sleep. And if it is in there, it just needs to be monitored. And that's not going to say that you just trust children to know they're not going to get on it, because we hear some things around here about sneaking and get back on those iPads and clearing the room. Meal times are so important. So much information on meal times and the importance of family meal times. I know it can't always happen. People have different schedules. People do soccer. If you can do a meal time, don't have the TV on. Use before bedtime. We talked about that. Age-appropriate content is really important, and just to monitor that and be aware. Time limits. this is all kind of things you have to figure out what works for you, whether you need to set, and it also is going to change as your child grows and develops, and with each new developmental age. And it's one reason I can't just say, here's what it is, and you can look at guidelines that says the 2 hours. That's the American Academy of Pediatrics. But it's what works for you, what works for your family, what works for your parenting style, and keeping balance in mind is really important. A lot of people think in terms of weekend and weekdays and have different things. I'm not a huge fan of like none and unlimited because of the balance factor. It works for some people because their children don't become completely obsessed with it. But don't put it on too high a pedestal where it's this amazing thing and you get it and you get it all the time. I don't know, for me, a little problem with that unless it works for your family, unless they have unlimited and they don't really care. By that time, your study's just applying that it's not a big deal. It depends on the child, all of these things. Monitoring use of texting and hurries. We talked a little bit about the iPhone when it's the right time. We don't feel like any child in lower school needs a cell phone. We've seen not great things come from it, and they're doing things I think, parents don't realize, text chats and text circles, it looks like a game, but it's really a message board where bad things are happening. So if they do have one, it's to really closely monitor the use. They don't need privacy over any device in elementary school. Breaking old habits, that's hard. Maybe you've always relied on TV to fix dinner, to get to school in the morning, whatever it is. And maybe now you've heard this and you're like, you know what, I think I'm going to try something new. It's hard. Children will adapt. They'll be okay. It'll take a little while. There'll be an uncomfortable transition period, but they will find something else to do. And their brains will thank you for it.
Yeah. Sometimes we underestimate our children. Like if we give them an opportunity, like have a family meeting and discuss it and bring it up and ask their opinions. Well, what do you really think about it? Or how healthy do you think this is? Or what do you think would be a healthy amount of time? And if, together, they can be included in part of the decision making. Then there's that buy-in factor from them where they're like, hey, I helped set these own rules. Or decision making about what would be healthy for me. Like I don't know, they're really smart. Kids are pretty, that ownership. I think they're really smart. And we need to give that to them and bring them in on it and ask questions maybe so that it would be easier to switch from that to that.
I'm so glad you brought that up, and that's like a huge point that I just skipped over in the last about setting guidelines. Not surprised you brought it up. Very thankful. Is these conversations when you make the rules need to be a family discussion. As soon as and really at any age, it can be a family discussion. We're talking about the rules and the guidelines and everyone having input. It should be a family.
Well, even as an adult, I don't want my boss coming to me like, this is the way we're going to do it.
Yes.
Versus,
You want
how
to
do you
meet.
think this would work best?
Yes.
We love staff meetings. They love family meetings. We want to be a part of it.
And I think that's where you end up with the fourth grader who says, you know what, I think maybe it's best for me not to watch it. I think that's how that happens. Is they've been included in the decision instead of being told what to do. Thank you so much. That's good.
We just did that with chores. And
Yeah.
we were like, what do you think you can do? How much do you think you should make for that? And we had to bring it on down, but.
But it's a discussion at least, and they do part of things.
But they're actually doing it, and I'm not getting the attitude.
Right.
Because I think that they felt like,
Well,
crap, we made this decision, we got to do it. So yeah.
Okay.
Chelsea, I have Sam recently spent the night with a friend and has an older brother. And he came home and he was a confessional. He was like, I watched the older brother play this video game and it was really bad. And I know that you would not have wanted me to watch this, but I did. I sat there and I watched it and it was really bad, Mom. It was Grand Theft Auto.
I knew you were going to say that.
Of course you knew I was going to say that.
And it's the one.
He knew it was bad. And he also knew, he says he did not play it, which I really do believe he did not play it, but I believe that he did watch the older brother there play it. Oh, and it was one of those moments where my heart was just beating down my chest because I feel like we can protect them so much. And You know, that is something that I would never have in my home. No judgment, but that's just not something that we would buy for our kids.
Yeah.
And, but he was like, so what in that moment, like, I just felt like I wanted to, I was like, well, like you told me,
How comfortable. Told you.
Yeah,
Tell
you
me.
did it, like,
Okay,
yeah.
well, okay, that's all I said. I was just like, but I know, I was like, that must have made you feel uncomfortable. Clearly that made you feel bad or uncomfortable. He was like, there was some really bad stuff out. I was like, so then Lawrence and I were like, oh my gosh, what did he say? What did he say? Then we Googled stuff and we got scared.
That specific game comes up in like everything.
Why is that game is just like, everybody
Because
knows about it.
It's pretty like, oh my god. I mean, it's got some bad stuff in it. Well, yeah, it's so great he came to you and talked to you, because kids are going to be exposed to all sorts of media that's inappropriate, that they're confused about, and to be able to talk it out, I mean, is excellent and an important and great step. I did read some articles and thought about bringing up, but there's so much in this and we have to stop somewhere, about how do we have these conversations with other parents and with grandparents and with babysitters. And that's another personal decision. You decide, how far am I going to go when my child goes to spend the night, and what am I going to say? But if you think about in terms of like, go back when it was just a movie, we would have said, my child can't watch an R-rated movie. Well, they also can't watch an R-rated video game. And I think it's okay to ask those questions about video games and say, you know, we don't allow this in our house. I would prefer not to be exposed to this. And I think right now, we really need people to like set an example. When we go back to our use of technology, we really need people on the forefront of this, because it's so fast. It's happening so fast. And we've got to kind of slow it down and bring it up and talk about it and get these awkward moments where the other parent might have never thought about it, didn't realize it was happening, and it's helpful, I think, to everyone. So we just kind of have to set the standard where our children go and kind of make it a safe place. We can't control everything, but I think that that's a perfect thing to bring up before a play date or a sleepover.
Yeah, and I think we had an incident this year with, Chelsea alluded to it, with a 4th grade game. It was a game, but not really a game. There were students who were using it as a message board, and some unkind things were said. And
Excluding.
it developed, I mean, it started to manifest here at school. And when I emailed parents about it, I got quite a few responses that said, thank you, I didn't even know this was on my child's iPad. So, you know, or I didn't really know what this game was. It looks innocuous, right? And it's hard to monitor. That's the biggest challenge I think you all face, is it's just so much. And how do you monitor? How do you balance monitoring and teaching self-monitoring? That game,
What is it? Can you tell us? Like, we don't even know. Like,
It's like you're going around.
Clash of
Clash of
Clans.
Clans.
It's a little faux social environment.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
It's not
like
a bad game in
community.
itself.
And it's good for like critical thinking, and you're building community skills.
It doesn't have inappropriate content, but it's
Right.
the clickiness, groups that they form,
Well,
and how
so-
that spills over.
It's that first opportunity to say things about someone or to someone that you would never say to their face if you were looking them in the eye.
Hiding
But,
behind the screen. Yeah.
Right.
you know,
But my broader point would be just that I think initiating those conversations can be often less uncomfortable than you would imagine.
Yeah, I think that's true.
If I could add on that, if we really, at least I appreciate the support from the school, because when Dr. Peters Yik Yak, we just, I mean, I didn't know, I had no clue what it was. But my 6-year-old this morning, we were talking, my daughter spent the night out, and just like you would smoke, you know, when you kind of run through it, she's like, I know, Mom, but again, the outside influence, I mean, I don't know, so we go through our little, okay, it's kind of like we don't talk to strangers, we don't surf the internet, or, you know, we just go through these things. And my 6-year-old said, and don't get on Yik Yak. That was last year that Dr. Penny said, he remembered that as a preschool, just the name, he said that's a bunch of strangers or people you know doing bad things. And I thought, well, that was a family meeting based on a school email, that he learned something, he was a little ambassador for that. So she actually laughed, and I got off the look because her brother was telling her. But anyway, that's really helpful for those of us who don't know even what's out there to tell them.
Yeah, look at those apps closely, because this one is one you would think, you know, oh, this is just a little game, whatever. And then it's also access where people on the outside have access to our children. To ask them, hey, let's move out of this group and chat. And that was happening. And so these apps, and you pay close attention to these apps and who has access to your children because of these apps. And there's a lot of dangers there. And I think that too, content and the dangers out there is a completely separate talk. But yeah, be mindful, be aware.
There's also an addictive nature to those games where they have to build communities. I know, my kids really love that sort of thing, but we kind of cut that out because, there's that constant, I have to go check my garden. It's gonna, they have this guilt about, I have all these responsibilities. And, and then they start coming to us wanting us to give them money to buy fake, no, you're buying nothing. That's air. You understand that, right? So we just kind of exited a lot of that stuff. And it helps. I mean, really honestly, we're still struggling with self-monitoring because both of mine really love it. And for us, a lot of times, just none of it is better than little snatches at a time is almost just enough to make you angry. So,
if you go back to those developmental stages, that's exactly what developmentally they're trying to do, is be in control of something, but it's here. And it's not.
It would have been very tempting to me as a child, that notion of actually living a grown-up life, and having all that. But it's we just do better when we don't have it.
The one time I had to make a decision and take the Minecraft away because it's crept into my family secretly. They saw, and I just said, I'm going to replace this with special time with you all, and we're going to take more bike rides, and the look on his face, that I'll never ever forget that as long as I live. What that face showed me, he was so thrilled to have more time with me, and I had to stick with it. And he's like, hey, I'm not playing on the iPad, let's go down the street to the mud, and explore for more wood. I'm like, okay. But it's like, if we just give them the opposite, we give them that, they take it. They'll take that time with us.
Until they get older. And then
I'm not there yet. I'm going to admit that right now. I'm not there.
Crack addicts also cry when you take their crack away. You just have to go through the painful.
I'm going to get on right there. I'll come to you for that.
Do it when they're young. It's harder when they're young.
You're right.
So this is good. Nothing matches the power of our attention.
Yeah.
And then this kind of brings back to the whole obsession that it wasn't even probably fun. It was stressful. It's I have to do this.
Yeah.
And so
it's almost a relief, to some degree, if it's just gone and they can't go check their garden or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's like the stress when you take away the iPad from the 3-year-old. That it's stressful.
And my kids fight over the game.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, you can fight without a game. You don't need to fight over who kills who in Minecraft. You just sit on opposite ends of the couches, kill each other on the game. Or pushing them off the cliff or whatever. I'm like, just fight regular. Fight regular.
Okay, so tonight, technology. Technology not all bad, right? It has great potential to learn about the world around us, explore the world around us, but then it's also the potential to kill relationship. Because when we plug in, we disconnect from everyone around us because we've entered a different world. We're exploring that different world. That is great to do, but we're disconnected those around us. So it's being mindful of our use and thinking about what do you do instead. And y'all kind of started these conversations when y'all are saying, what do you do instead? Playtime, talk time. And I feel like we have some really young kids in here. What's our first? What I thought we don't have, it is being videotapes, which I just realized, but playtime, I like to call it self-directed child play. I'm going to go really quick, just where you do whatever the child wants to do. And this may be still relevant to you, definitely with first graders, kindergartners, probably all through elementary, is doing what the child wants to do and not judging, and you're just playing along. It's sometimes really boring, especially with 2 or 3-year-old, 4-year-old, these games, whatever it is, and you do it. Really important, child-directed play, 10 minutes, everything, 10 minutes, just try to commit to something like that. Great if you can do more. Talking, talk time. So we're thinking about what's missing, what would we need more of, this talk time, or listening to your children. And I love Wendy Mogul, who did Blessing of a Skin Knee, and this acronym she has, WAIT, and it's something to ask yourself while you're listening to your child and you're responding, and it's, why am I talking? Is it to nag? Is it to preach? Is it to over-explain, over-analyze? Is it to give my story from when I was a child, to impart that lesson? And while sometimes that's great, it's not really what children need all the time. They just need us to listen. And by being better, and to be a better listener, I'll say, it's asking questions to understand, and not to immediately, we go to our alarm, we're like, we get alarmed very easily when our children are telling you these stories of our day, and to keep it cool and not overreact. And what lessons are they learning? And what are they telling us about what happened on the playground? And then other things important to kids when we're having this conversation, to, aside from asking questions, is to try to paraphrase what they're saying. Is this what you mean? This is what I'm hearing you say. Is this what you mean? Another thing to try to do is to reflect emotion back. And this is another thing just in the research that sometimes parents are missing, is to say, you seem really sad, or that must have been really hard for you. But sometimes we skip right over talking about the emotions, and we go on to explain and try to make them feel better. We just want to make it better so fast that we don't slow down to say wow, you feel really bad about that. And sometimes that's the most effective response, is just to validate their feelings. And that's important to them, to feel like you're listening, you care, you understand. This is sort of the end of this conversation, which I hope you've enjoyed. I've enjoyed it being here. And it's a call to us, I think, to be good role models and to set an example wherever we are, whether we're at a restaurant, we're in the car with a friend, in our houses, to think about our use of technology. And to think about when you're in a social environment, you start to feel awkward, not to reach for your phone, but instead to reach out to the person next to you. And that's the other really big shift we're having as a society right now, is reaching to the phone when we would instead have been talking to another person, being forced to talk to another person. We're getting uncomfortable with those situations, and we're all like this. With our children, to give them the message, phone away, put down the phone. I'm here, I care, I want to understand, to be in the moment, and to work towards that balance of whatever works for your family. Yes, kids love technology, but they also love Legos, scented markers, handstands, books, and mud puddles. It's all about balance. So I'm going to let you figure out what the balance is for your family, but just to keep that in mind.
Thank you. Thank you, Justin.
Chelsea, do you know how to turn this off?
Is this you?
No.
Is this us?
This is
I didn't,
Tim, generally.